Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 2, now in Finance with Parks in the Home Buyers series. So, on this one, like I talked about last episode, we are going to discuss renting versus buying. Um, Melissa and I, have been renting for the last 2 years now, and it's honestly been great. We've loved our apartment complex. We've had a great experience here. The place is really nice. That we had a parking garage. The noise wasn't really too bad. I know that's always something that concerned us was having so many neighbors that it was going to be too noisy. But it's really been a great option for us. When we first moved here, we didn't know how long we'd be. So renting was a great first choice for us, and now we like I talked about, we're moving towards buying. So I just wanted to sit down real quick and talk through, kind of what we've seen as the pros and cons, and where our thought process was going as to why we decided now is the time to buy. So first, let's start with the pros of renting. First big one is no need for down payment. That's huge, and that's really one of the biggest costs that is associated with the upfront home purchasing, right? And that's kind of what a lot of people shy away from, and us included. One thing to keep in mind is that there are some options from a down payment perspective if you're a first time home buyer, but essentially, normally the expectation is that you would put 20% down for your house. So $300,000 house, you would expect to put down 60,000 in cash, which is an absurd amount of money, right? We think that that's kind of in our price range from a total home price perspective, but coming up with 60,000 would take us forever, a really long time. So that was something that was hard for us to get over from a purchasing perspective. Like I mentioned earlier, there are flexibility arrangements, especially with first-time home buyers, where you don't have to come up with that 20%. I will talk through in a later video when I kind of explain one of our calculations or our monthly payment calculators as to an additional cost that you have to pay if you don't get to the 20%, called mortgage insurance. But that is really the big pro with renting, right? So you don't have to come up with that money regardless. Second one is you're not responsible for most maintenance slash fixes. If you mess something up in the apartment or you put a hole in the wall, that's going to be your responsibility. But I'm talking things like when our water filter goes out. One time our air conditioning was leaking from the ceiling, so we had to, the plumber came out or the maintenance guys came out and fixed it for us. And so there's no charge for a lot of those things. If you have issues with your washer and dryer, that's something that the apartment complex would take care of. So there's a lot of things that are nice about just renting that you wouldn't be responsible for as a normal homeowner. Um, and then one other thing too that's a pro for renting that we've seen now is the extra taxes slash fees. And these were things I didn't really even think about until I saw that kind of monthly payment breakdown that we got when we were interested in buying our townhome. So two of the things that jump out right away are HOAs, would be addition for a house or a townhome, and then property taxes. Property taxes in Texas are expensive compared to the rest of the nation, from what I've heard. I think what we're paying in our area is 2.09%. So it ends up being, I'm making up the number now, but I think it's something like 5,500 for the year, somewhere in there. I know it's 2.09%. And I think that varies by a city. But that's what we were looking at in our area. And so for rent, you're given one price, right? Hey, your rent is $1,200 a month. You're going to have to tack on utilities on top of that normally, but there aren't additional taxes or HOAs associated with your rent price. Then the last thing is it's easier to move. That's what's nice about renting, is that for us, when we were coming to a new city, we didn't want to be locked into buying a home. That was going to be a long-term investment. So you can rent pretty much on a month-to-month basis. We did year-long leases, and in your prices will vary based on how long you want to commit. But it is much easier to move if you're renting and you're not committed for a longer period of time. So that's a huge pro. All right, so after those four, let's move down to why kind of we decided to buy, and these were kind of the top reasons that we used to rationalize moving forward. So the first one is obviously equity in your home. So we've paid $1,200 in rent for the last almost 24 months now. So a ton of money has been put into renting. When we go to move out of here, we will get paid $0 to leave. We may even get charged more money based on how much we get back in our deposit. But I guess the thing I'm trying to get across is when you're renting, all that money you're paying for rent is not getting put back to, we'll say, equity in your home, like from a house perspective. So when you go to the house, just quick example, let's say in principal, we will have paid, I don't know, let's say we will pay $100,000 when we go to sell our townhome. Even though the price was $313,000, we put $100,000 into it. In theory, when that price sells, we would essentially be getting that $100,000 in equity back, right? If it's sold for the same price. So that's kind of the best way to think about it, is that all that money that you're putting into the house when you're buying hopefully will come back to you when you go to sell the house based on what the final price ends up being. But with renting, right, we've spent $1,200 a month for the last 24 months, and we'll be seeing $0 when we leave here. All right, and then another reason for buying is the larger size, and you're separate from your neighbors. So right now we're in a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, I think like 800 square feet. I don't know, it feels decent size, but it is small compared to what you would get in a house normally. And you're in an apartment complex, so like our neighbors are all around us here, like I highlighted earlier. And that's tough for some people. People like the privacy and don't want to be sharing walls with everyone in the complex. So that's what's cool about a house. And you do normally get a bigger size, right? We would be going to 3 bed, 2 bath. Another thing to highlight is the personal garages or yards. In our situation now, we do have a parking garage, but it's obviously shared with the whole complex. We do not have a yard. We have a patio. And like I highlighted last video, even in the townhome, we're not going to like a huge yard or getting a backyard but we do have a huge garage, and it's our own personal garage, so we're not sharing it with anybody else. Then obviously a home, you would get the advantage of the entire yard space, separation from your neighbors kind of thing that you have no option to get in an apartment complex. And now that I say that, I'm thinking, I guess, back to kind of the overarching goal of this video of rent versus buy. I know renting can be applied to houses as well, so I apologize. I guess I generalized that some of the cons associated with renting were things that you only deal with in an apartment. So just keep in mind, if you are, obviously you can rent a house, so some of those things won't apply, like not having the yard or your personal space, but the other things still do, like not needing a down payment and not being responsible for fixes or maintenance. So I apologize to go back on that one for a second, but just to clarify, you obviously can rent houses. Just in our scenario, it's focused on being in an apartment complex. All right, moving back down to the reasons to buy, freedom to renovate. So when you're renting, you're normally renting out either from an apartment or from someone else's property, so there are restrictions on what you can do. They normally even don't like you drilling into the walls or hanging permanent fixtures, things like that. So when you buy your own house, even in a townhome, right, we can't fix the exterior per se, but pretty much everything on the inside is up for fair game. We can repaint the walls, we can permanently fix things to the walls. So there's a lot more freedom from decoration to just renovations in general when you buy versus rent. And then the last one, financial predictability. So one big thing we ended up seeing here was our rent has gone up. Well, I guess it went up. It went up after our first year, and it's gone up again after our second year. I had to think for a second. I can't believe it's been 2 years already, but it's gone up twice. So what's hard about that is it's hard to kind of predict or budget for your monthly payment when your rent goes up every year. I think when we moved here, we started paying like under $1,200, and now forget what I said at the beginning of the video of the price. I might have misspoke, but now it's almost up to $1,300. So it's gone up over $200 since we've been here in 2 years. And it's one of those things where they kind of just tell you, hey, rent is going up, take it or leave it. You can either re-sign or you can go somewhere else. So that part is difficult to kind of plan for. And I guess why I say financial predictability on a house is normally with these 30-year loans or a fixed price or a fixed rate mortgage, you can kind of plan for your standard principal and interest payment each month. Some things that still may vary a little bit are things I actually highlighted above, like HOAs and property tax. I'm not sure on HOAs. I may have to find this out, and maybe if someone knows, if they could comment below. I'm assuming HOAs are remain flat, or there would be some sort of voting process to increase the HOA fees. But I may be totally mistaken. Maybe that could be the same thing where they just decide to increase the HOA rate. However, I feel like that would meet, we'll say, strong difference of opinions from the people that live there if they did try to raise the HOA on a yearly basis. But like property taxes, for example, can vary slightly when you're buying a home. Based on what I know, your home could get reappraised, right? And so if the value of your home has gone up, then that 2.09% that they're charging you for property taxes, if the value of your home has gone up, now that percentage, the 2.09 may stay the same, but the amount you owe is larger because they always do it off the value of the home price. So that brings it back a little bit from a home buying perspective, but still not having to worry about your rent going up on a yearly basis is really nice. All right, so those were kind of the things I wanted to highlight. It is hard coming out of renting to buying. I mean, buying has been super stressful financially, coming up with and not just the down payment. Another thing I didn't highlight here is also closing costs. I'll do more of a detailed video about that, kind of the breakdown of what we're going to owe at closing. But just keep in mind, you'll owe your down payment or whatever you're going to put towards the principal, essentially, of your house, of the sell price. But then there's also what they call closing costs, or in my mind, I just think of it as additional fees to purchase the house, whether that be paperwork for the titles. There's a bunch of other terms that I'll have to look up on our thing, but it's essentially all those fees that go towards the realtor and the closing and things like that. And those closing costs, I think in our case, are close to $7,000. So when you're thinking about when you need that down payment, I guess keep in mind that it's not only the down payment that's going towards your principal, it's also those one-time closing costs that you'll have to pay right away when you get the keys to your place. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. I'm not sure what's going to be in the next session yet. Maybe something along the lines of kind of what I discussed about our payment calculator, kind of walking through. Here was the home price, maybe going into credit scores and things like that. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and please feel free to comment, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks again. Bye.